Well, I got in the new Luna Combat book from Lincoln Wright and friends. This is the Ma.K, the Mac Machining Krieger Lincoln Report, Volume 2. You may remember I'd done a video, I guess it was last year, early this year, I don't even remember anymore, when he had released his first Machining Krieger Link Report, Volume 1. That was about the Ammonite. This is about Luna Combat and some of the vehicles and schemes and things like that, paint schemes that are that are featured on Machining Krieger models that are in the lore fighting on the moon. Boy, I just stumbled and fumbled around for 3 minutes to say it's a book about Luna Combat. So anyway, I got this book in, and I've been looking at it. I've really been enjoying it. Now, a lot of people, well, okay, not a lot, maybe 3 or 4, but people have asked me, okay, is this a how-to book? It's not, and it is, and it's not. It's a lore book. It's a fan book. It's talk about Lincoln and Ko Yokoyama and other people who were very heavily influential in the Machining Krieger world. It's a little bit of how-to. It's a lot of inspiration. It's a lot of photos. So it's a lot of things. I guess when the last book was released, I sent Link an email. He's a friend, and I'm glad to have him as a friend. But I sent him a question, and I basically said, would it be accurate to describe this as, in part, a coffee table art book? And he said, yes, that's absolutely an appropriate description. So I thought I'd just show a little bit of it here today. Now here you can see the various types of vehicle or suits, things that are going to be covered. I'm not going to go through all of them because I don't want to steal the thunder of Link's book, but I just want to kind of give you a flavor of what's there. And he was kind enough to autograph that, so I really appreciate that. Okay, some of the book is just text talking about Machining Krieger lore, how he got into Machining Krieger, his talks with Ko Yokoyama, who is the originator of the Machining Krieger genre. Let me get this thing fully on camera. There we go. So some of that is just talking about that. There's pictures of, Link when he was obviously younger. I guess this was early on after he met Ko Yokoyama. So this would have been, more than 10 years ago. And then just some talk about their relationship and his introduction into the world of Machining Krieger and things like that. So a lot of this, if you've been a fan of Link's and you've watched his videos and maybe been a patron and read some of his other stuff, a lot of this, listened to interviews and things like that, a lot of this you will have already heard, but it's just nice reading. If you like reading about the hobby, reading about the genre, it's just good reading. It's just very interesting. So that's definitely a plus as far as the reading goes. Now, one thing I thought was interesting is he's got this piece of it that's talking about how strict is the lore, and this is about his understanding of it, his conversations with Ko Yokoyama and all of that. And I just want to read briefly a couple of sentences, a couple of paragraphs. He said Ko Yokoyama sensei would emphasize the importance of the lore in stories as suggested starting points. Whew. Inspiration for fun. And then quoting Ko Yokoyama, he says, "We want machining to be a source of joy and freedom of expression. Yes, of course, we can supply a starting point such as a kit, but then they can follow their own path, be it our looks and suggestions or something completely different. It's for them." So I thought that was a very good piece to put in there, that the idea from the originator is, look, this is just a starting point. This is just, here's some lore, here's some stuff. Now you go and you take it in whatever direction you want to take it and go a little bit further. So I thought that was really cool. Now, some of the the book talks about certain aspects of painting and weathering and all of that. And again, his life in Japan and all of that. And some of it, shows just some of his suits that he's built. This is the Fireball SG. And again, if you've seen his work before, I think this one is featured in several videos on YouTube. I think I can't remember off the top of my head because he's had quite a few. But there's just some really nice photos, clear photos of them. And I think what's very interesting is it gives a close-up look of the style that he paints in. The style, you can very clearly see the weathering patterns, the actual physical damage that he does to a fighting suit, to a machining Krieger kit, the way the paint looks. It really gives a good view, a close-up view where you can just really study it closely to see what he does. And the whole idea, not to speak for him, but I think he would agree with this. The whole idea is if you find it fun to try and copy this and do it just this way, because that's how you learn from it, then do it. And if this inspires you to do something similar, then that's fine too. And I know with my own work, I tell people, look, if I do something and you look at it and go that, and you say that's absolutely not how I'd want to do it, and it inspires you to take it another direction, good, as long as you're having fun. So the great photos really help with just inspiration and enjoyment of this particular genre. Now, he also invited guest builders to either show work that they had already done or maybe even built them new. I don't know for sure, but like they've got this one called the Banana Boat, which is a transporter to transport these armored fighting suits to the moon. And this one is, and I know I'm going to mess it up, but I'm just going to say it like it's phonetic here, Kai-Yol Yoon. And my apologies to them. But it's just an interesting, it looks like a very large model, even if this is 1/35th scale. You can kind of see up here, if that's a 1/35th scale, when it still means this is huge. I think there are 176. Oh, there it is right there, 1/35th. So yeah, this thing right here, this is pretty big, because even the 1/35th scale stuff, even though it's not much taller than one of these, if this is about the height of this, then you can imagine how big this whole thing is. So just an interesting way of showing a part of the universe that's not modeled. So this is I don't know if it's scratch built or whatever, but it's because I haven't read this far, honestly. But it's just very interesting to see that. Now, there are a couple of places in here that it goes more into detailing the construction. It's just brief details, just a brief explanation of the various photos that are here. Goes into the colors used and, just some brief weathering steps. All of these are in some way covered in both public and Patreon videos. So if you're have not been familiar with Link's work and you would like to take a look at it, I'm sure he would appreciate, one, you looking at his channel, and two, taking a look at his Patreon stuff. But it just shows, here's what he did. Here's just a brief overview. And if you're familiar with these techniques, it can just be a good source of inspiration. If you're not familiar with them, then this is kind of a good jumping point to say, well, let me go watch some of these videos, because even if it doesn't cover his public videos, even if they don't cover this particular model specifically, all of the techniques that I've seen him talking about in this book, he covers somewhere in his videos. He's got a playlist of over 50 machining Krieger videos, how-tos, techniques, chipping, panel lining, painting, working with lacquers, working with acrylics, so just a lot of different stuff. So this is just kind of a nice zoomed in close-up look on some of the things that you will see in his videos. And here's a shot of that model that I was just looking at close up. And, so you can see if you've seen his work, if you've seen this particular model, it gives you an opportunity to really get up close and look at the photos and see things in a way that, often video doesn't convey. So it really is fun to kind of just get a very close-in look, almost as if you could just be there holding it. Here's more explanation from his Lunadiver Stingray, if you've seen that, and just talking about some of the weathering that he does, and then some very close-in photos of how that looks, and it's just great stuff to really get an understanding of the style and techniques that he uses, so that you can add them to your own toolbox, your own repertoire of weathering and painting capabilities, and then take them and add to them and extend them and do all of those things even further. This is one of my favorite photos in the whole book. I really like this. I think it's a space ball, super ball, but regardless of what it is, this space white look, I just really like being able to look at it up close and see that it's a very interesting finish, even though a lot of the chipping and damage and things like that are very subtle. When you really look up close, you see the depth of weathering. It's what I've talked about a lot in my own videos, the depth of weathering that goes into these. It's just so very interesting to see. Here's another model by Alexander Duchamp. He goes by the name Maschinen Heimat, Heimat. Just another one of the fellows who's notable in the Maschinen Krieger world. He does acrylic finishes, which it's interesting that he took what Link does generally with lacquers. Not always. Link does use acrylics and other things, but Alexander took acrylics and just kind of ran with it, and he puts out his own publications, PDF publications that are very nice. But again, just a very, very nice close-up look to see what goes into kind of the canon, I guess you would say, look of Maschinen Krieger. So anyway, that's just a look at this. I've enjoyed this series. I enjoyed the first one. I enjoyed the second one. I've talked to a few folks who got the first one and they felt a little disappointed because they didn't understand what it was going to be. And Link's he's never shied away from what it is. It's a celebration of Maschinen Krieger is what it is, I guess would be one way to put it. It goes into all sorts of things about Maschinen Krieger, not just a strict how-to book, but something that's just enjoyable about the genre, and particularly about the inventor of it, and then Link, because if you're not familiar with Link, he's unique in the genre because he was part of Ko Yokoyama's studio that did work for the box art and for magazines. He was, for quite a few years, he did writing for them. He came up with storylines. If you look on some of your older pre-2016, 2017, sometime in there, on the boxes where it will tell you who was involved in it, you will probably see his name. So he was living in Tokyo. He was part of that studio, and which is rare for someone who is not Japanese. Early on, one of the first times I heard about Lincoln was, I don't even remember, it was two guys doing some kind of show, just kind of a podcast, and they were just stunned to find out. They were like, there's an Australian guy that has done work for Ko Yokoyama, and it was like, I didn't think they let anybody from outside Japan even do that stuff. So he's unique in that he lived there for 25 years. He spoke the language. He was invested in the culture. And so he's kind of a unique bridge between Japan and the West, the English-speaking West. There have been loads of publications over the years official publications about Maschinenkrieger, but my understanding is his publications are the first ones in English that are approved by Ko Yokoyama. So that's a big deal. So anyway, that's who he is. But if you like his work, if you like me, if you like sitting in your recliner and looking through a good book and looking at nice pictures and reading some stuff and reading, and you just consider this enjoyable time spent when you're not necessarily doing the hobby, but reading about the hobby and just getting inspired for the hobby and things like that, it's a great book. If I remember right, it's like here in the U.S., I think it's $49 US. I think in terms of cost, it's about what you would pay, maybe a little more, but about what you would pay for things from AK or ammo or something like that. Having it shipped from Australia did add to the cost, but it also, one of the reasons that I wanted to get it is I just this is how Link makes his living, and I just did it. One, because I wanted the book. I mean, there's no doubt I wanted the book. But two, it made me feel good knowing, okay, this is something that supports Link and his wife Tomoa and his daughter Tabitha. I mean, I can name the names. It's like when I buy the Two Thing Coats paints, I can go, okay, this is helping Dunk and Raj, and I like that, being able to know that this is a benefit to real people. Not when you buy the other stuff, it's not a benefit to real people, but knowing their names, seeing photos of them, having sent messages through Link to his family to say, have a good day or happy birthday this year or whatever, and getting a message relayed back. So I just find that very, very satisfying. So if you enjoy Maschinenkrieger, if you're already a fan of Lincoln Wrights, get this. If you're not, but it seems interesting, go ahead and get it. I think it's a good modeling book overall. So I've enjoyed looking at it, and I've still got to finish reading it. When I first got it, I just did the 7-year-old thing of just going through and looking at all the pictures. Oh, look at that! Oh, look at that! Oh, look at that! And now I've got to finish reading it proper. So, yeah, I do recommend it. And just in case you're wondering, I did pay for this. I didn't get it free. I didn't get it as a sample or anything like that. I ordered it from the public link, which I'll link to down below in the description. But if you are interested in this, I would say order it sooner than later, because he, as I understand it, he does one printing and they get delivered to his house, and he and his family put them in envelopes and mail them out. And when they are out of books, they're out of books. So if this seems like something that you do want to get, I would say it would be better to get it sooner than later. So anyway, as always, thank you so much for being a patron. Happy day to you, friends. Bye-bye.